Earth's gravity is one of the few things we never have to think about. It's always there, keeping our feet on the ground and our world perfectly balanced. But what if, without any warning, Earth's gravity suddenly became twice as strong? Not forever, not even for a minute, just 5 seconds. At first, nothing would look different. The sky would stay blue, the buildings would still stand, but an invisible force would instantly begin changing everything. The moment gravity doubled, every person on Earth would suddenly feel twice as heavy. Standing would become a struggle almost instantly. If you normally weigh 180 pounds, your body would suddenly feel like it's carrying the weight of 360 pounds. Even taking one step would require enormous effort. People would lose their balance. Phones, groceries, and bags would slip from their hands as millions tried to understand what was happening. Children carrying backpacks, delivery workers hauling packages, and athletes in motion would all feel the crushing effects immediately. Parents holding babies would instinctively pull them closer, as even the simplest tasks suddenly became much more difficult. Across cities around the world, traffic slowed, crowds froze, and confusion spread everywhere. And this was only the first second. But gravity doesn't only affect people. Every living thing on Earth depends on it, including the animals above our heads. Birds that were soaring through the sky would suddenly become too heavy to stay airborne. Many would lose lift and drop toward the ground. Small drones would fall out of the sky almost instantly. Their motors simply weren't built to fight twice the force of gravity. Helicopters would struggle to stay in the air, forcing pilots to use every bit of available power just to maintain altitude. Commercial airplanes would have a better chance of staying airborne because of their speed. But every wing, engine, and landing gear would suddenly be under far greater stress. Inside the cockpit, pilots would feel the crushing weight too. Even reaching for the controls would take noticeably more effort. Meanwhile, air traffic control centers around the world would light up with emergency calls as crews tried to understand the impossible. Back on the ground, every vehicle would suddenly weigh twice as much. Cars would slow down, trucks would become harder to control, and braking distances would increase. Bridges would experience enormous extra loads. Modern structures would likely survive, but older bridges could begin to crack under the pressure. Construction cranes, elevators, and heavy machinery would all be pushed close to their limits. Around the world, engineers would watch in disbelief. So, what actually caused all of this? Could Earth's gravity really double out of nowhere? The short answer is no. According to our current understanding of physics, a sudden worldwide doubling of gravity isn't something scientists expect to happen naturally. Gravity isn't a switch that can simply be turned up or down. It's created by mass and described by the way massive objects curve space and time. Imagine placing a heavy bowling ball on a stretched rubber sheet. The sheet bends downward and smaller objects roll toward it. That's a simple way to visualize gravity. Earth constantly bends space-time around it. That invisible curve is what keeps us on the ground, the moon in orbit, and satellites circling our planet. So for Earth's gravity to suddenly double, something extraordinary would have to happen, like Earth somehow becoming far more massive, or the laws of physics themselves changing. If Earth actually doubled its mass in an instant, the consequences would be far worse than what we've shown. The planet itself would undergo dramatic and destructive changes. That's why this video is a thought experiment. We kept Earth exactly the same and imagined only one thing changing: the strength of gravity for 5 seconds. That single change explains why people struggled to stand, why vehicles became harder to control, and why every movement demanded twice the effort. And it also explains why birds fell from the sky. Flying requires lift to overcome weight, and with twice the weight, many birds simply couldn't generate enough lift. Cars struggled for a similar reason. Every vehicle suddenly became twice as heavy, putting much more stress on the tires, brakes, and suspension. Even a short drive would become far more dangerous. Fortunately, 5 seconds isn't very long. Most modern buildings are built with large safety margins, so many would likely survive such a brief increase in gravity, though older or already damaged structures could still fail. But imagine if it lasted for 1 full minute instead of 5 seconds. Roads could buckle, bridges might collapse, power systems could fail, and injuries would rise dramatically. The oceans would also feel the change. Waves would become denser and crash with greater force, while waterfalls would pound the ground with much more energy. Even our bodies aren't designed for that kind of stress. Our hearts would have to work harder, our joints would carry much heavier loads, and simple breathing could become more difficult. So why didn't every airplane fall from the sky? Because fast-moving aircraft generate lift with their wings. They would be under much greater stress, but many could remain airborne for a short event like this. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it was over. Gravity returned to normal, and millions of people slowly realized they had survived something that should have been impossible. Cities came back to life. Traffic started moving again, birds returned to the sky, and emergency crews rushed to help those who had been injured during those unforgettable 5 seconds. Thankfully, Earth's gravity is remarkably stable. A sudden global doubling like this isn't something scientists believe can happen naturally, but it reminds us how every moment of our lives depends on an invisible force we rarely notice. So if Earth's gravity really doubled for just 5 seconds, where do you think you'd be? Would you stay on your feet or hit the ground like everyone else? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring impossible what-if scenarios, don't forget to subscribe for the next adventure.